A barrage of Russian drone and missile strikes on Ukraine's capital have killed at least one person. The Ukraine Air Force says it intercepted more than half of the missiles launched.
Firefighters in Kyiv are extinguishing the last embers. This block of apartments was hit by Russian missiles in the early hours of the morning, sending many of its residents fleeing underground for safety.
The building was on fire, but firefighters couldn't start working because explosions were still ongoing. First ballistic missiles, then cruise missiles. We stayed in the shelter the entire time.
Last night, our capital city was subjected to a combined massive missile and drone attack from Russia. Once again, this month and last month, we see that Russia is directing a very large number of drones and cruise and ballistic missiles at us.
Officials say 4 districts in Kyiv were hit in this latest round of attacks. Other Ukrainian cities were also targeted. The morning light reveals the damage done in Kyiv to homes, shops, a school, and the entrance to a metro station where people had taken shelter.
It was very scary when the attack happened. There was lots of smoke and dust. We all got very scared. There was a little panic, but we know how to act. We've all gotten used to it. We take care of each other, and we take care of the animals too.
As they return to street level, these Kyiv residents, like many others, are faced with the aftermath of the latest bombardment of their city.
Now let's bring in Marina Miron. She's a military analyst at the Defence Studies Department at King's College London. Marina, Russia keeps targeting Ukrainian cities with large-scale drone attacks. Why are we seeing this now?
Good afternoon, Phil. Well, there are a couple of reasons for that, and one of the reasons being the fact that Russia has not only ramped up its production of drones, it has also ramped up the production of decoy drones, which it sends out at the same time to saturate Ukrainian air defenses. And also there are adaptations when it comes to technology of the drones being used. So we're talking about Iran 2, which is the Shahed 136 type drone, which has seen several modifications since the beginning of the war, or since the beginning of the time when Russia started using them, August 2022. And so, firstly, the altitude of these drones differs, meaning that the Ukrainian side has difficulties intercepting them, whereas the Ukrainian side has used different means to intercept drones, such as also using machine guns. With a higher altitude, it's not possible anymore. They're not reachable. Also scarce air defenses and expensive interceptor missiles would be a waste, especially if the Russian side uses a lot of decoys which appear on the radar as an incoming threat. So you have that problem coupled with the fact that massive amounts of drones are being used, which are flying from different directions at different altitudes. And so these factors in conjunction lead to the fact that we're seeing more missiles and drones coming through Ukrainian air defenses.
Now, while the aerial attacks are drawing headlines, what's actually happening along the front line on the ground?
The situation is difficult with the Russian advance on the way in different regions. So one region being Zaporizhzhia, then we have Russians moving forward around Pokrovsk. Kharkiv seems to be calm for now, more or less. And then we have Sumy, which are the main directions now. The Ukrainian forces have managed to counterattack in 2 of the regions, retaking at least one village in the Sumy region and trying to basically cut Russian forces into west of Zaporizhia, so in the Zaporizhia region. But right now, it's still too early to say how successful those localized counteroffensives will be and whether it will be enough to stop the Russians or to push them back there. Because as we see, the offensive is happening on multiple fronts. And in some cases, the Ukrainian forces can counterattack, but not in every scenario.
Now, from what you're saying, it seems that militarily we are entering a phase where territorial gains matter less than airspace dominance. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily. Ideally, one would establish air superiority if air supremacy is not possible in order to support ground operations. And as a matter of fact, that is the way NATO approaches operations. So informational and air superiority is established first before you conduct a ground operation. In the Ukrainian case, we see that the Russians failed to do so, or at least managed to establish localized air superiority in some regions. I think it is important to stress here that what we're seeing, on the one hand, you have operational level air superiority, and then you, of course, have Ukrainian ground-based air defenses trying to defend cities which are far away from the front line. So we have to distinguish between those two. But that being said, we're seeing now that it's still possible to take territory without having full air superiority, whereas it would certainly be an asset, but you cannot say that one is more important than the other.
Marina Miron, the military analyst at King's College London. Thank you, Marina.
And DW correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz is in the Ukrainian capital for us. We understand it was another sleepless night in Kyiv. What's the latest?
Yeah, it's been a massive air attack with dozens of drones and missiles, especially here in Kyiv. I woke up around midnight to heavy explosions, and it continued all night long. From what we hear, at least one person died, several persons have been injured, shops, even a kindergarten, many residential buildings have been damaged. Even a subway station was hit where hundreds of people took shelter. There are pictures of smoke inside the station, but so far we haven't heard anything about injuries connected to this specific strike.
And we understand that Ukraine has proposed holding ceasefire negotiations with Russia next week, but so far no date has been set. Tell us more.
Yeah, we know that President Zelensky has suggested such talks that could already start in the coming days. We also hear about discussions taking place between Russia's President Putin and Turkey's President Erdogan regarding such negotiations. For the moment, the only official reaction by the Kremlin is that Russia is open to talks, but also not willing to shift from its maximalist demands. And these demands include the full annexation of 4 regions in eastern Ukraine, partly occupied by Russia. So, yeah, there are new dynamics at the moment regarding peace talks, but the ideas how an agreement might look like are still very different.
It's been a week also since President Trump set a 50-day ultimatum for Russia's Putin to stop the aggression. The strikes have not let up. Where does diplomacy go from here?
Well, I think there has been a slight decrease on airstrikes on some big cities in recent days, but nobody really connects this to Trump. And as we just discussed, attacks have resumed in full force last night, and also the fighting along the front lines continue in full force. So, yeah, some observers say that the threat of secondary sanctions that could also affect countries such as India and China, important trading partners of Russia, has made some impression on the Kremlin, but in the short term, what really makes a difference here on the ground are not such announcements of a 50-day deadline, but it's the decision by the United States to resume shipments of air defense weapons here in Ukraine.
DW correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz in Kyiv. Thank you.